Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Before we dive in today, I want to invite you to join me and my community in our free challenge. It's the 5-day Peaceful Parenting Reset. It starts on Monday, and I am so excited for us to all have this opportunity to get back on track or get on track in the first place with peaceful parenting. This reset was designed to help you stop yelling, increase the good vibes, and get everyone working together in your family so that you can finally enjoy your time spent together rather than just counting the minutes till the kids are asleep. We've got 5 days of actionable tips and strategies that are quick and easy to implement, delivered right to your inbox, and we're focusing on one tool a day. We've got daily live short lessons with me with Q&As. We've got our Facebook group for community and support while we're doing this challenge, and you will have access to me in daily coaching. So that's 5 days of short, actionable tips that you can do to really get on track. And I know that we all need reminders every once in a while to sort of why we're doing this and how to do it in a daily way, to have a daily practice where we show up and practice the tools that we know about in peaceful parenting. To sign up, you can go to sararosensweet.com/reset, R-E-S-E-T. That's sararosensweet.com/reset. We start on Monday, so I hope that you will join us. If you're listening to this after the fact, there is a spot on that page where you can sign up to be notified the next time we are doing a reset. So please join us, minutes a day, and you will be a long way from where you started by the end of the week on Friday. Again, that's sararosensweet.com/reset. And I forgot to mention the most important thing, which is that it's free. It's a free reset, a free challenge, 5 days, and please join us. It is going to be really great. This will be the 3rd time I've run this reset, and parents always tell me how helpful it is. Again, join us for the free Peaceful Parenting Reset. Starts Monday, sararosensweet.com/reset. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a guest expert episode. It's a little bit different than our usual interview format where I interview a guest expert. It is a sneak peek inside of my membership. Every month in my membership, we have a monthly theme, and we have a guest expert who comes in who gives us a little presentation and then answers the members' questions about that monthly theme. This month's theme was growth mindset. Growth mindset is how we become successful in life when we believe that we can't do something yet, but it's not. It's the opposite of a fixed mindset where we give up and we feel like we'll never be able to do it. So we invited Sheena Hill, who's a friend of mine. She's really great. She's going to introduce herself actually. And she gave us so many fantastic tips and strategies for growth mindset. And then she answered some really great questions from my members. I think you're going to learn a lot in this episode. It was full of things that you can start doing today and also, common challenges that I know a lot of you have. And as I mentioned, this is a sneak peek inside of my membership. I open the doors twice a year to invite in new members. And I do that because I really want to focus on supporting the people who are already there rather than, trying to get new people to join all the time. Coming up on Wednesday, October 5th, I will be opening the doors to invite in new members. If you are not on my email list, you are going to want to make sure that you get on there so that you can find out when the doors are open. So if you go to sararosensweet.com/newsletter, you can join my newsletter list, my email list. I send out, I've been told, really great emails every week with some parenting gold, things that just support you along in your journey. And also that's how I let people know about things like the membership is currently enrolling. So let's meet Sheena and hear all of the great wisdom that she has for us and hear some of the members' questions. I know you're going to find this really useful. Again, mark your calendars for Wednesday, October 5th, when I open the doors for the membership. If you don't want to join my email list, make sure that you reach out to me so that I can give you more information about the membership. But the best way is just to get on that email list so that you don't miss anything. Again, that's sararosensweet.com/newsletter. so that you make sure you don't miss out when I open the doors, and you also can get some great emails from me. Love to see you on there. So let's meet Sheena and hear what she has to say about growth mindset. I am so excited to introduce my friend Sheena, and she is going to be talking to us about growth mindset. And Sheena's going to give us like a 10-minute or 5-minute or however long. She's going to give us like a little quick overview of like kind of best practices for growth mindset. We're talking about growth mindset today, parenting for growth mindset. And when I asked on my Facebook profile, I'm like, who do I know who can talk to parents about growth mindset? Sheena's like, I can. I'm like, yay, that was so great. So thanks so much for joining us. And so Sheena, if you could just introduce yourself to start, that would be amazing.
Sure. So I'm Sheena Hill. I'm a psychotherapist and responsive parenting coach. My practice is called Parenting Works, and I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland, USA, but I work with parents all over the world. So yeah, I love to talk about parenting just like you. And it's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. And you have 2 kids who are 18 and 5?
So I have a bonus kid now. So I have 3 kids.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I have 2 6-year-olds and an 18-year-old.
Amazing. Oh, congratulations on the bonus kid.
Thank you.
I hadn't realized it had gotten quite that official yet. So that's wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, it's very exciting. A lot has changed since the pandemic.
Yeah, that's so great. Okay. So, all right. Well, why don't we just jump in? And if you don't mind, just giving us sort of your sort of Coles Notes highlights of best practices for growth mindset, raising kids with growth mindset.
Yeah, thanks. So, obviously I want to just make sure we're all on the same page when we think about what is growth mindset. And that's just recognizing that traits and abilities are not inherent, right? They're not fixed, something that you're born with. They are adaptable over time. And so, it's not just talent and intelligence, right? But with hard work or extra support or, accommodations or resources, we can all grow and build our skills. So it's really about parenting in this power of yet, right? And so there's a few kind of key areas that I identified that you can think about making some shifts in parenting. So the first is perspective. So how do you think about, right? How do you talk to yourself about or view both yourself and your child, especially traits and abilities, behavior, mistakes, right? And so when we are practicing, the growth mindset in our parenting, we can always remember, and I think this is true for all relationships, right? That children are inherently good and capable of growth and learning, and everybody wants to do well and connect. So it helps us avoid catastrophizing and really focus on empathy. So I'm reminded of the tenets of positive psychology. So instead of saying, oh, this is so hard and my kid's never going to be able to do it, or I'm never going to be able to master this parenting tool that I've been working so hard on, you might think to yourself, I love a challenge, right? Here we go. This is hard work. And it's going to feel so good when I finally cross that finish line. And I'm going to try to get the most out of and enjoy the journey along the way, because that's really where the growth happens. So it's from a perspective standpoint, it's a lot about reframing. Where are you now? But what's beyond the now, right? Where can you be? And it's helpful to think about other tools or challenges that you've mastered. So kids can do this, and we can also do this as parents. Especially as parents, we might think, wow, I'll never get through the teen years. But remember those early days when you were exhausted and there wasn't a lot of sleep, and maybe your baby needed to be held all the time, right? We got through those years. So if you can remember other things that you've accomplished, other things you've achieved, that gives you that perspective, right? Instead of just having that tunnel vision, I'm in it now, right? This is so hard and insurmountable. It allows you to remember you can be in the thick of it, and then eventually you see the other side. So it's just kind of, thinking about life as living on a learning curve, which it's easier to do that when you're young. It's a lot harder to do that in adulthood, especially with parenting. I have so many parents that I work with that say, I don't want to take years to heal these wounds and fix these things. I want to do it now because, my child is young now and I want to give them the best life. But it does take time. And so being willing to be patient and give it that time. sort of an extension of perspective is language, right? So not just how you think about behaviors and mistakes and abilities, but also how do you talk about it to yourself internally, aloud in front of your children, and then directly to them. So this is a really big one, especially when we get tempted to use labels or make comparisons. Oh, your sibling would never do that. Your cousin never did that. That's not how your friend would behave. Your sister can get straight A's in math. Why can't you? So we want to avoid, any of those kind of platitudes. Oh, you're just the smart one. You're just the athlete. You're good at sports. Oh, you're just lazy. You'll never be able to do that. Obviously, I know we want to avoid labeling and name calling altogether. But even sometimes we might say, oh, well, my child has this sensitivity and they'll just never be able to manage that, right? So think about how you're viewing and talking about all the needs and skills. In addition, I find that the way we talk about mistakes really matters. So I hear this a lot from parents, right? They say, oh, my child is really afraid to make mistakes. They want to be perfect all the time. I'm not sure where they got it. And usually I ask parents to do a little reflection, to think about, right, really pay attention and actually write down the way that you label or categorize the mistakes that you make throughout one whole day. And you can, think about what just stays in your head or what, you might actually say out loud. And those things really add up. So if you're driving and you get lost and you say, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I missed my turn off. Right? Our kids hear that. And what they're hearing is it's bad to make a mistake. It's dangerous, right? It's not safe. When in fact, there's an easy repair. Even if you're late, even if there's more traffic, right? There might be things that happen, but it's not the end of the world. So especially when parents are building the skill to talk differently about mistakes and help their kids really embrace mistakes, I often recommend making a sign, right? You can make it together as a family. You can make it as beautiful and large and fancy as you want, but make a sign that says mistakes are welcome here, right? I have even instructed families in the past to invite your mistakes to dinner or a tea party. Set a spot for them at the table. Okay.
We have our challenge for the month going along with our growth mindset is for everyone to share their mistakes at dinner. Everyone say one mistake they made at dinner. So I love that you mentioned that as well.
Absolutely. Right. You can even personify it. You can name it to say, oh, Mickey mistake. He's coming to dinner tonight. And, maybe he just makes all sorts of mistakes all through dinner. Oh, no, Mickey, you can't eat with your knife. That's not how you eat. Oh, no, you can't put your cup on your head. Oh, my gosh, he's so silly. And you might even say goodbye to him at the end of the meal, right? Oh, open the door. Time for you to go, right? We had a lot of fun with your antics, but it's over now, right? We have to say goodnight. But just to create some levity. And I love the idea, Sarah, of sharing your mistakes as a family on a regular basis, because it's really important for kids to know we make mistakes too, right? This is a lifelong thing. Nobody's perfect. And to be able to talk about it in a really honest way that's accountable, that has feelings, right? Asks for necessary support, but doesn't get stuck in that shameful place that says, I can't believe I made a mistake. Obviously, this is super hard when we have systems in our societies that are all about, mistakes and like grades and all sorts of things. So I know a lot of families feel like they're working uphill, but definitely you can set the culture in your home to say, we talk about mistakes here. We share mistakes big and small, and it's not a big deal. And sometimes we just listen, and sometimes we help each other problem solve. I even like to sometimes ask parents to verbalize some of that metacognition. So if in your head, when you make a mistake at home, you're thinking, oh, darn it, I shouldn't have made that mistake. Verbalize instead of just keeping it in your head if your kids are in earshot. So you might say, oh, I put too much salt in our dinner. Wow, what am I going to need to do? Let me Google it, right? How do I fix this? Or yeah, it looks like we're going to have a pizza night. We're going to toss this, but a lot of that work happens in our head and we don't realize, right, that our kids are missing out on it. sometimes I've even asked parents to make some very silly intentional mistakes. So like bake a cake with your kids and use salt instead of sugar, and then say, whoops, right? We use salt instead of sugar. Well, you know what? Let's just try the cake anyway. And maybe we'll put some whipped cream or berries or something on it, and you don't have to eat the whole cake, but what a great story, right? What a great ritual to say, my gosh, one time we made a cake with my mom and or my dad, and they messed up the ingredients and we had this super salty cake and it was gross. I couldn't even eat one bite, but we were laughing so hard. So I know most of us were raised kind of thinking the opposite of mistakes. So it's a big, big shift, but it really does matter because, creating that bridge to the yet, right? So it's not yet, that is so regulating. Living in the now actually requires a lot of validation and a lot of external regulation. So it's much easier to parent in that yet space. Obviously, we want to provide high quality support. So, that's acceptance and validation plus confidence, especially around mistakes. And then just thinking about our behavior, right? In addition to expecting and allowing mistakes, we want to think about how we're giving feedback and offering praise. That really matters, right? If we're just focused on the results, then that kind of trickles back to mistakes are not okay, right? Learning is not about mistakes. It's only about the result. So think about effort and process and be willing to deal with difficult things, both one-on-one and as a family unit, right? This kind of is at the heart of responsive parenting, right? That we talk about feelings and we talk about real things. But that's the number one thing that really supports growth mindset, is being able to say, there's something going on here. It's not a secret, right? It's not to be ashamed of. Let's work it out. We're all committed. We're all on a team where, we can make repairs where there are ruptures. We can talk through hard things. We can still connect even after, we might feel disappointed or let down by each other. And when we can do that in relationship, we can do that with ourselves. So that's the key piece of really fostering that growth mindset. And I know you wanted to get to some questions, so I don't want to talk too long, but definitely, I love to reinforce, because growth mindset really does improve the quality and also the longevity of relationships. So it's a crucial relationship skill.
I love that, Sheena. Those are all so helpful. And I just wanted just zero down a little bit on something that you mentioned, because it really just jumped out to me, is how we respond to our kids when they make mistakes. Do we act like it's an emergency and get upset about it? Or do we try our best to keep regulated when they make a mistake? Because that's also going to send that message that, mistakes are an emergency.
Oh, yes. That's probably the biggest learning curve, right? Is when you say, "Oh, there's a big mess here," or you didn't do something that I thought was in your potential or a skill that you had previously, and yes, being able to keep that regulation and kind of be breezy about it, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, there's a mess. We're going to clean it up." What do we do?
Totally. I love that. All right. Well, awesome. That was so, so helpful. So if anyone has a question for Sheena, you could raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask your question. Does anyone have a question? Mara looks like she has a question.
Mara, I do.
Hi, yeah. Mara. Go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm curious. So my oldest son, he's 9. He has braces, and it makes brushing teeth incredibly challenging. And so we sort of check every night to make sure he's done it well, but he's always got the attitude of, "Oh, I know it's going to be bad." How do we help get our kids out of that mindset that no matter what, they think they're going to do something wrong?
Yeah. It's probably not what you're expecting to hear, Mara, but I would not try to convince him otherwise. He has lived experience that brushing his teeth with braces is an arduous task, right? It takes more time and more effort, and he has to be really careful, and it's not a preferred task. I don't know about you, but most kids are going to shy away from non-preferred tasks. So he still has to do it, right? Doesn't mean that you let go of your limit. If you need to put some things in place to make it easier to hold that limit, right? Either making a plan or providing some support, making sure you have enough time, right? Making it fun, maybe with one of those like teeth brushing. I know they have like a toothbrush now that connects to an app and it will like sing to you while you're brushing. So, there may be things that you can do to help support him in the process to make it a little bit easier, but certainly, right, still has to be done. That's not changing. but his feelings are valid. It's not something that is really enjoyable or easy. And so you don't have to co-sign what he's saying, but you could just acknowledge, right? You're right. This is tough. I know it's not your favorite thing. And instead of kind of getting into it with him, right? But you have to do it. Come on, and the orthodontist is going to be mad or whatever. Just, acknowledge and then give some space. And he can say whatever he might feel the need to say. Yeah, this is the worst. I can't believe that you made me have braces, right? Which I always love. And like, you're gonna thank me one day, but I know right now it doesn't feel that way. So my favorite line to say when kids are upset about something that grown-ups do is, tell me more. Right. So he's, offloading. This is the worst. It's going to be so bad. I hate it. I don't ever want to brush my teeth. You might listen and then say, anything else? Right. Tell me more. You still have to brush your teeth, but I care about your feelings. So tell me how you're feeling about it. You don't have to change your feelings, right? This is just to give him some extra support so he can offload and be a little bit more regulated to then think clearly so he can say, all right, I'll go brush my teeth. Then outside of the moment you could problem solve. But I definitely wouldn't try to convince him. And you might even reflect his wish back to him, right? You wish you didn't have to brush your teeth. You wish it wasn't so hard. You wish you didn't have braces. You might even be playful and kind of turn it back on him like, oh my gosh, do you wish you didn't have teeth? What about corn on the cob? You love corn on the cob. How would you eat it without the teeth? Now, again, you're not trying to get him to stop feeling the upset about brushing his teeth, but you're just trying to give him some regulation. So you got connection, you got understanding, you got a little laughter. So now he's feeling more regulated and he'll probably say, oh, mom, right? Of course I want teeth. And then you'll say, okay, well, I thought so. Well, let's go brush our teeth. And, brushing together, even if it's not your time of the day that you would normally brush your teeth, that could be really helpful, right? If you stand there together and brush your teeth. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box. The only thing I would say, Mara, is if there's some dread, right? Like if as soon as he gets home from school, he is really, just not himself. Like I can't, I'm so upset. I don't even want to eat because I don't want to have to brush my teeth. And, it's really painful. Then you might try to get ahead of some of those needs or provide some extra support just because we don't want to create any anxiety. I know that braces can be pretty painful, but in the moment, I would definitely lean into the feelings and follow through with your limit with some support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so what I heard from that is like, instead of trying to convince him otherwise of his feelings that he's not good at this yet, you're really welcoming those feelings and saying like, yeah, you might not be good at this yet, like the yet word that you're talking about. And I'm probably going to be bad. It's probably going to be bad when you check it. Well, it might be because you're not an expert yet at brushing your teeth with braces. And it's really hard to brush your teeth with braces.
Absolutely. And this is a skill we're building, right?
Yeah.
We're doing it together. I'm supporting you and it's a skill we're building. And you might even set a benchmark. Okay, right. You've had your braces for 2 weeks. Let's put a star on the calendar. So in 2 more weeks, we're going to have a goal that, you're going to feel really confident because that's what it's about. It's about the confidence in being able to take risks, knowing that there may be mistakes because there's always support on the other side.
And I love how you brought the emotion coaching into it also, because that's why growth mindset can be hard because it feels bad to be bad at things.
Yes, it does.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. So I see that Molly has her hand up and then also Mare has her hand up. So we'll go Molly first.
Okay. So last night, my 9-year-old son wanted to play volleyball in the yard with my husband. I guess they're learning about it in gym. And it's kind of painful to play volleyball and it was hurting his arms. And he was getting frustrated because it's hard. The ball was going all over the place. And my husband, I heard him validating him like, yeah, it does hurt. You kind of get used to it and things like that. And my son like just kept spiraling. It seemed like nothing my husband was trying was working. And I didn't know if, with growth mindset, you didn't want to just quit because it hurts. You want to keep trying, but I don't know. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
That's a great question, Molly, right? Kind of this balance between perseverance, and, self-care. So even though you might want to keep working, it doesn't mean you have to go hard just that day, just that time, right? You can certainly say, we had enough practice for today. Let's come back to it on Saturday, right? The weather's supposed to be nice on Saturday. Let's try again, because that reinforces that this is a big picture skill that you're not going to master in one shot. You can also take breaks and then return to the activity in the moment. So, if he was having a hard time, not as a punishment in any way, but just as a check-in to say, oh, it looks like, this is really hard. And your husband might even verbalize, his own experience. Oh, my legs are getting tired, right? I've been running around. I need to take a break. What about you? What's your body telling you? And then your son might say, yeah, my arms are hurting. I need to take a break too. Okay, let's go get some water, right? Let's rest our arms for a couple of minutes. We still have plenty of daylight. Then we can play a little bit more before it's time to go in. So that teaches that, you don't have to martyr yourself, right? You don't have to harm yourself to learn a skill. It's okay to return to something. And, if he's, I know you said he was spiraling, right? He was having a hard time. That's a great place to check in and say, what's going on, right? What are you thinking about? Or what are you worried about? If you've talked about listening to your body previously, right? Because I wouldn't introduce it in the moment, but if you've talked about it before, you might say, where do you feel that in your body? And he might say, oh, my arms are hurting. Or he might, tell you an emotional sensation, right? My chest feels really tight because I'm really scared that I'm never going to get this. And absolutely having the validation. I hear you. This is really important to you. You care about this. You want to be good at this. And I know it takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort and practice. And as I said at the top of the hour, having that validation plus the confidence piece. So yes, this is hard, right? Your feelings are valid. And I know that you will get it with hard work. And I know that you can get through it, right? So having that other piece that kind of anchors in the growth mentality, that even though it's hard right now, doesn't mean it's going to be hard forever. So just like Sarah said, right, having that yet in there to say, you haven't mastered it yet, but I know with some more practice, right, by the end of the summer, maybe you will feel really good and won't hurt your arms. You'll have built up a callus. I had no idea that volleyball that hurts my arms just thinking about it, Molly. But having that realistic time frame and then allowing the feelings. It's okay for him to be disappointed about that. It's okay for him to say, oh, I don't want to wait all summer. That's too long. I want to do it now. I really wish I could have it now. And then your job is just to support those feelings and say, I understand. It's okay for you to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I liked when you said about my husband saying, oh, my legs are tired, because part of the frustration, I think, is my husband is like kind of too good at everything. And it just is so annoying sometimes. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sheena, I have a question for you about, I remember when my kids were little, and I remember specifically my oldest when he was like in 4th grade, and he was like, I'm not any good at soccer. Like, I think they were playing soccer at school. And I said, well, is it important to you to be good at soccer? Like, do you love soccer? And he thought about it and he was like, not really. And so I wonder if there's a place for like, you can't be good at everything and you can't give 100% to everything. And like, if he had, because I was prepared, if he had said, it is really important to me, I was prepared to like, okay, well, we're going to go out in the field, we're going to practice, after school, and like, I'll support you however I can to get better at this thing. But he was like, actually, no, it's not important to me. And I never heard about soccer again after that. Do you think that was the right call?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have those moments of reflection, because you're right. There's not enough, time in the day or energy in our body to do all the things. So it is good to decide, what might be a priority. Not all kids will be able to do that reflection and really be able to understand, especially if they're at certain ages or they're very extroverted and, they're looking at their peers and saying, well, it doesn't matter that it's not important to me. It's important to my peers. And so I still want to participate, but it's never harmful to have that discussion and kind of talk about it.
That reminds me of a hilarious story from when my husband was little, like 4 or 5 years old, and he was playing tennis with his grandfather. And he was getting really, really frustrated because he wasn't good at tennis because he was only 4 or 5. And his grandfather said, well, doesn't matter. It's not like you're going to be a tennis pro or something. And my husband said, but I am going to be a tennis pro. So he was one of those kids who wasn't capable of having, or maybe it's just because he was so little, he wasn't capable of having that perspective in that moment. But that story was sort of became family legend, and he didn't become a tennis pro. But
well, and I think there's so much pressure in our society that if you care about something, you have to be great at it, which is really harmful because you can like something and not be the best. But being able to think about, if you care about something, you could work hard, right?
Yeah.
That's the takeaway from a growth mindset standpoint, that if you put in time and effort, if you had the support, if you had the resources, you could work hard to improve your skills. You might not be the best, but to improve your skills.
Yeah, I love singing, and I'm not a good singer, but I have been thinking maybe I should take some singing lessons, and then I would maybe get a little bit better at least. Okay, yeah. Let's move on to Mare and then Celeste.
Hi. If I can just interject to Molly, though. Molly, if your son wore long sleeves, sometimes that dampens the pain on the arm. And also there's volleyball training balls, that are softer and have a bladder, so they're not as hard as like the official volleyballs, or even a beach ball.
That's so good. Mare was a phys ed teacher, so she knows all these tricks. And that reminds me of scaffolding, right? With the whole growth mindset, like the scaffolding, like how can we support them while they're learning a skill?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Okay.
I had no idea.
Well, I'm loving your suggestions too. But my question is, I have a 6-year-old grandson who, when he is in school, he anticipates something being hard, not being easy, and he refuses to do it. And no one's there to give him the support on all these wonderful things you're suggesting to say. And when he does come home and then has to do the makeup work, it's not like he struggles with it. He can get through it, but there's times that he'll even just hide under a blanket just because when he gets frustrated, then he'll come out and continue it. So he does have actual frustration, but what can I do to help him persevere when he's at school and is not getting all these wonderful supportive suggestions you made?
Yeah. Well, one thing you can do is provide some of this support proactively. So outside of school hours, right? Even if it's not with actual schoolwork, persevere where there might be a challenge. So if you see him struggling through a activity, or maybe you're cooking together or doing a household job together, if he's struggling, don't rush in to fix it, right? Provide some of the same support. And then you can talk to him about doing some of that, advocacy at school. Obviously at 6, that's not his responsibility. The grownups should be taking care of that, but he may still be able to ask for some extra support. He may be able to work out with the teacher. Could he take a break? Go get up and sharpen his pencil, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, just walk around the room. A lot of teachers, especially teachers that have understanding about the variety of child development, they will allow different accommodations in the classroom if you talk to them outside the moment. So especially if you're noticing a pattern, I would go to the teacher and say, hey, we've noticed a pattern, right? What are you doing in the classroom to support it? Here's what we're doing at home. And is there a way to, match those up so that there's some of those supports in the classroom as well, even if it's not direct support, even if he has something, a picture in his desk that he could look at, that's you and him. So he remembers, okay, right? Granny says, I can do this, right? Maybe write a little note, you've got this. And then he can feel regulated and connected and be able to go back to his work. When it comes to doing schoolwork at home, I don't know. I'm guessing that a lot of you guys are in Canada. I don't know how the school system goes in Canada, but In our school system, kids have a lot of homework, even at young ages, which is very sad. So I find that most kids do really need a chance to decompress after school before doing schoolwork. They need to move their bodies. They need sensory stimulation. They absolutely need a nutrient-dense snack. They need some connection and some time to offload. It doesn't have to be 5 hours, but most kids are not able to dive into their work. So if he, comes home and he has some makeup work to do and he's really resistant, I would take a break, go outside, get some fresh air, have a 2-minute dance party, and then come back. But if you notice a pattern, right, every day he's struggling with his homework, then it might be time to set up just sort of a more structured routine. Okay, when you get home, we're going to decompress, have a snack, we'll start the homework, right? If we need to, we take a break, then we come back, just so there's as much predictability and environmental safety cues as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we hop on to Celeste's question, one of our members asks, this is for going back to what we were talking about with Molly's question, what if something isn't important to the child, but it's something that they need to persevere at, like reading or math?
Excellent question. You don't have to care about something to work hard at it if you have a lot of support. Obviously, it's easy, right? It's easier to work hard at something if you have a lot of motivation. But the interesting thing about motivation, what all the neuroscience says about motivation right now, is that starting a task is what creates dopamine. So we used to think, right, you needed dopamine in order to start your task, but it's actually the opposite. So, if you don't feel like doing something, just having that task initiation with some support actually will create some dopamine. And then, of course, that is going to continue to be created if you are getting continued support or positive feedback. And if you have a growth mindset, then you're able to bounce back even with some errors. So in that case, right, I would not try to convince the child to love it. I would not say, you're going to be, you don't know what you're missing. Reading is the best. Let them have their feelings. They don't have to love it, but they still do need to do it. It's just like brushing your teeth or getting in a car seat or a bicycle helmet or, right, all of these other unilateral decisions that we end up having to make as the grownups. So in that way, I would set up a structure, right? Set up a routine where you are able to give your full undivided attention to that support, right? So if they need to do 20 minutes of reading or whatever for school, don't say, okay, go in your room at bedtime and do your 20 minutes of reading, because obviously it's not a preferred task. That task initiation is going to be a high bar. Instead, you might say, let's do some reading together. I love those books where, you read a page and the parent, the child reads a page. I mean, you could do that with any book, obviously, but having that direct support. And it doesn't matter if you say, but they should be here. That's okay, right? They can get there, but we want to meet them where they are and have realistic expectations and give all the support that they need, and then slowly reduce those accommodations as they build their skills and as they build confidence, because the confidence is really the internalized piece to be able to build more skills. So you could acknowledge, right? It's okay. Reading is not your favorite thing. You don't have to love it. You do still have to practice. So we're going to set a timer, right? We have 20 minutes of practice every day. You put in your time and then you're done. You don't have to do any other reading until tomorrow if you don't want to.
I love that. Thanks, Sheena.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's go to Celeste. And then if anyone else has a question, put your hand up or say in the chat that you do, because otherwise we're going to start to wrap up because Sheena's already been so generous with her time today.
Okay, I also have a comment for the last question before I go on. So my son, I think, has had a history of kind of shying away from things that are difficult, and he's 5. And maybe like a few weeks ago, I mentioned it. He did something and he was like, it was challenging, it was hard. And I was like, but he finished it, and I was like, oh, that's cool, right? Because like when it's hard, when you finish it, it feels even better. Like the most challenging things are the most fun things. And then this week I asked him how his day was or whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, I did this. It was like really challenging. The challenging things are the fun things. I was like, so he had said it back to me, even though he said he learned that from our dog, not from me. But just because our dog apparently teaches him everything, because our dog knows everything. So
That's awesome. Thanks, Celeste.
But my question was about maybe expectations and setting expectations for different ages in terms of, because like I said, my son is 5, my younger son is 2.5. I'm not even thinking about him doing things for certain periods of time, but my 5-year-old is like he's gotten interested in basketball. And so then he'll go, my husband has been giving him basketball lessons while like I go to soccer practice with his 2.5-year-old brother. And I just kind of wanted to get a sense of like expectations of like how long a 5-year-old or other ages might actually work on a task that they're interested in and things like that. Just because I think that sometimes, you just want to, like you said, meet them where they are. So
yeah, that's a great question. And there's such a huge range based on, age and development, executive functioning, temperament, right? A child who is very well resourced, who is not tired, not hungry, who's had some connection, who's had some opportunity to, move their body. Those kids are going to have more executive functioning than, someone who really needs a nap and is starving. So it definitely depends on a lot of factors. And I know, it's important to know those needs, but obviously you can't account perfectly for every factor. So in terms kind of generally, Celeste, a 5-year-old might be able to have some really dedicated, prolonged engagement for about 20 to 30 minutes. If it's really, really fun, right? So if there's no agenda, if it's not about, this many points and you stand over here and this is the rule. If it's just fun with a parent or somebody who loves him, then he might even be able to play longer because that's just fun. But structured learning time, right, where you're saying, here, we're going to learn this game, that might even be shorter, like 10 to 15 minutes at most on a really good day when all the stars are aligned, because that's just a lot of executive functioning and regulation, right? It's a lot of attention span. So generally, we tend to engage more deeply in things that we're drawn to, right? Where there's high motivation. But as we've been talking about, right, we tend to get a lot of motivation from succeeding and doing well at things. So your husband can set himself and your son up for success by keeping that feedback neutral and just about play and effort, right? So, you could cheer when he makes a basket, but the goal is not to make the basket, right? The goal is just to practice and have fun. And then the, self-awareness and the body control and all of those other related skills will come organically in time.
all right, thanks. That's helpful. It's also helpful for like my son's gotten really into board games and he wanders off after a certain amount of time. So it's good to know, like, what is it going to be?
Yeah.
When is the game over? Which is fine. So he'll often like come back. He's like, no, we're going to finish the game. But he's obviously like also all over the place.
Yeah. So you might pay attention to some of those patterns, especially based on other context clues, right? And just like I recommended earlier, do a check-in. If you know that about 10 minutes in, he kind of starts to wander away, you can be the leader there and say, oh, we've been playing for a while. I really need to go to the bathroom, or I really need to stand up and stretch my body. Let's take a break, right? You can play over here for a couple of minutes. I'm going to go get a snack or whatever, and then we'll come back and finish our game. And if you don't have an idea of, it's always around this time, if that's not predictable, that's okay. But once you start to see, right? Because if you're there playing, you can start to see where he's like, getting distracted, looking over here. So when you see those early cues, I would offer a break. Right? Oh, and you don't even need to say, it looks like you're getting distracted. You could just say, I think I need a break. I'm listening to my body, and my body says it's really hard to sit on the floor like this. I need to stretch out for a minute.
That's awesome. Thanks. Good question. It looks like we might have one final question from Karen. Hi, Karen. Did you want to ask your question to Sheena about growth mindset?
Thank you.
Hi.
I can't remember what the context of it was the other day, but my son said to me that I was perfect, and I was really surprised to hear him say that. And therefore, he wasn't even going to try at whatever it was. He saw me as being perfect, and I don't do anything wrong. And so I've been trying to share with him mistakes I make and ways that I feel that I'm not perfect, because my daughter is a perfectionist. My son, I've never seen this in him before. So I found it curious that he made that comment.
That's so interesting. And our kids obviously do, put us on a pedestal, at least till a certain age, right? They do, think very highly of us, and they don't see all the hard work and all the years, right? I usually just tell parents, like, we have a lot more life experience. We have a lot more lessons learned, sometimes the hard way, that our kids don't see. So you're absolutely right, Karen, to share some of those in the moment things, and maybe even some previous things. Oh, when I was your age, I, made this mistake, and gosh, I still think about it to this day. Or, it didn't end up being a big deal, but at the time I felt really bad about it, and I, painted "I'm sorry" on the sidewalk or whatever. So it's great to be able to share those real experiences. And I love that you said the feelings part as well, right? Because especially when we talk about responsive parenting, everyone thinks you have to be calm and regulated all the time, right? You have to be perfectly in control all the time, or you can't be a responsive parent. And that's just not reality, because we're humans. So anytime that we, get dysregulated, or, whatever it may be, even if it's not, yelling at our kids, maybe we say, "Get out of my way," to the driver in front of us, or, something like that, to be able to say to our kids, "Hey, here's how I was feeling. Here's what was going on. Here's how I'm working on that." And that way they know it's okay for them to make mistakes and work on that too, right? That we're all growing and learning together.
That's a really good point. I love that.
Thanks so much for sharing.
Just sharing how I'm working on it, so that they see that I'm still working on things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not perfect yet. No, I'm just kidding.
You've made some really good points. I did have a bit of a doze, so I'll go back and listen. But I loved the, just doing something for 20 minutes that you were talking about. And we can use that a lot, I think, in our place.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Thanks, Karen. And thanks, Sheena. There was just a comment from Celeste, which I love. And I remember saying this a lot to my kids. She said, whenever my kids point out that I can do something that he can't do, I say, sure, because I've been doing it for 40 years and you've only been doing it for 5. And I remember with that, especially with drawing, because my kids used to say, "You're so good at drawing. My horse doesn't look like a horse." And I'm like, I've been drawing for 30 years longer than you have. So I think that's about perspective also, right?
Well, and that reminds me, Sarah, of something that I think, because we want our kids to feel good, sometimes we might jump in and do things for them. So if they say, "I want to draw a horse, I'm not good at this," we might take the paper and say, "Okay, here's your horse, you color it." So it's okay to let them, kind of struggle through and say, "No, that do your work. That's what you're going to do," and not, do it for them.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell everyone the best way to follow you, get in touch with you, learn more about the work that you do?
Sure. I can put my Facebook and my Instagram in the chat as well, just not at the same time that I'm talking. I don't have that much executive functioning, but yes. So my practice is called Parenting Works, and I am on Instagram, parenting_works, and on Facebook, no underscore, just Parenting Works. And I post lots of graphics, and I post them on my social media. So there's lots of tips there. I, work with families in a lot of fun ways. One of the things that I'm working on right now is a grandparent's guide to responsive child rearing practices. So
Awesome.
It's a class and a workbook for grandparents, so they can learn, like, what is this new way of parenting and what can they do. And I also, Sarah, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, that I'm trained in the SPACE protocol, the Yale developed and researched treatment program for childhood anxiety. So I do that privately with clients, but also group coaching. So my next cohort for that anxiety treatment group coaching starts in June.
Very cool.
That's on the horizon. And it's for kids who have anxiety, right? It's to treat kids, but it just works with parents. I never see the kids. It's just for parents.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Sheena. And
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great questions, everyone. Everyone's saying thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.